Our very first question goes to Mr. Atul, and the question is, what is the current scenario of security in the Indian pharma sector?
Okay, that's a pretty loaded question, Nikita. So I will start with some numbers, Nikita, over here. So if you look at, globally and within India, the cyber attacks on the healthcare industry over the last 1 year, has increased by, 40 to 50%. And that's attributable to the COVID and the pandemic thing, right? And organizations, equally within India and globally, have been affected by this. And this surge, what the research says is going to continue this year as well, right? The reasons being, of course, and obvious. So, when we talk of the, scenario of the Indian pharma companies, what we see and read is that, a good number of players, right? And I'm not talking about the biggies, the established players, the established companies, but most of the companies, there are all sorts of companies over there, the generic one, the medium and small scale enterprises. They're pretty much exposed to cyber attacks, right? We heard of what happened last year with Dr. Reddy and Lupin, the ransomware attacks kind of stuff. And, 90% of the companies, in the last 1 year, 1.5 years, they have suffered one or the other form of attack. So this sector is pretty much vulnerable to the cyber attack, and because of the very obvious reasons, the kind of data, the IP stuff, the sensitive data and all they deal with, right? And you need to, everyone needs to understand, the form of attack has changed, right? It is no more the same form of attack, the simple cybersecurity attack. It used to happen, a couple of years back. It has now turned sophisticated, right? No more, attackers no more target the perimeters, but now they target the end users. And globally and within India, you'd say 98% of the attacks, social engineering attacks, are phishing attacks, right? And that comprise, 80% of the incidents, cyber attack incidents, happen due to password compromise. So to summarize, the IT department is quite in an overwhelming situation over here, because they have to maintain the, keep the lights on at the end of the day, also deal with the security and the threat nightmares over here. I think if you look at what the companies will have to do, they will have to look at their cybersecurity posture, in a fresh way. They always work, but they are not simply enough, right? You will have to talk about, endpoint. Think from the endpoint perspective, because right now that's where the attackers start and then get into the network and gets going.
Mr. Atul, I completely agree with you, right? You started off saying that this is a very broad-ended, it's a open-ended question, but thank you so very much for such a detailed answer. And ladies and gentlemen, that goes to show the kind of expertise Exito brings, and that we've gathered just for you to hear and watch. Thank you so very much, Mr. Atul. Moving on to Mr. Ravi. Mr. Ravi, we'd ask you the same question, right? What, according to you, is the current scenario of sector?
Okay. See, to start with, to continue with Atul, like every industry, the pharmaceutical industry is also continuously embracing innovations in the way they operate, and to decrease the cost or improve the efficiency, or to do faster drug discovery kind of thing. Because of that, more and more pharmaceutical companies are embracing these these technologies, digital transformations, or outsourcing their activities to speed up the work, or to cut down their operational cost. So what they're doing is they're outsourcing their business models, like to diversified partners, whereas in the past they tried to do within the department. And due to that, the exchange of information or the data sharing between the partners or collaborators was very minimal. with outside world. Now, since globalization and India is becoming a global pharma hub, the way right now India is the IT hub, the after IT, the pharma is the second highest, hub in terms of industry wise. So there are a lot of companies that started, and a lot of other countries are investing heavily on these kind of companies, or collaborating, or are outsourcing their licenses, or are making as a partners. So because of this, there are a lot of diversified kind of partners, and you are prone to vulnerabilities, because you have to share the information between these partners and or collaborate with each other. And the moment the information is moving out of your own organization, then there are a lot of risk associated, because we generate a lot of IPs, or we hold the formulas of formulas, which is very, very proprietary in nature. So that is where the in Indians, pharmaceutical companies are also exposed to these kind of cyber attacks, due to lack of the internal security postures, or the or urgency of due to urgency of adopting the digital transformations, be it a cloud, or be it in-house IT OT layer integrations, or IT digital transformations, lead to a lot of vulnerabilities. Like we are exposed to these vulnerabilities, and also especially country-sponsored the attacks. So this is becoming new kind of a cyber war, where the countries are attacking Indian pharma companies to nullify their names in the global markets. And due to this, the Indian pharma companies are actually, went into one phase, like, they were struggling to, protect their infrastructure. But after that, most of the companies are realized it, what, cyber policies, securities, solutions which are available in the market, with especially and ML enabled cybersecurity solutions, they started adopting it, and also they started focusing more on this, the security. Once upon a time, security was the least priority in this kind of industry. Now today, they cannot take a risk. They have to change themselves, and they're investing a huge amount on security posture. They're also hiring a CIS force, and also the investing on SOCs, and also managing with internal as well as external services like EDR and XDR and MDR kind of solutions. And now they started adopting AI and ML based cyber security solutions. So now most of our mid companies and large companies started adopting these kind of technologies already.
Fantastic answer. That's a very good point to have mentioned. The thing is, right, what we understand from whatever is it that both Mr. Atul and Mr. Ravi have mentioned is that there is a lot of fear about cybersecurity and also adopting cloud. So our question to our next speakers, which is Mr. Atul and Mr. Pavithran, we'd love for both you amazing leaders to answer this question is, how do you overcome the fear of security and adopting cloud? What is the advantage and why should we do it right now itself? We'd like to start with Mr. Ravi. I mean, Mr. Atul.
Okay, thank you, Nikita. I think let me first start with the positive on the advantages. It's quite evident, right? I mean, the advantages of the cloud. I mean, look at it. I mean, from where do I start? You talk of scalability, you talk of agility, right? You talk of preserving the cash burn, right? You talk of lead time to market. You talk of having a resilient DR in place. You talk of fortifying the security. You talk of encryption, anything and everything, right? Cloud provides you a lot of advantages if done in the right way, to be honest with you, right? Big companies can afford to invest a cash, right? The small companies cannot. Yeah, one needs to need that. One needs to understand that, and and as Mr. Ravi said, Indian pharma companies, they have started to realize how important is digitalization for them, right? And they have started embracing digitalization, and especially when we got hit with the COVID, companies tried innovating their procedures and started embracing digital things. Now, cloud is one of the most important components if we have to be a digital company, because one of the aspects of the digitalization or the digital company being is, you got to have your applications, your application and services available to people across the globe anytime, anytime in a very easily manner. So that's very much important. So if you look, cloud offers a lot of advantages over here, right? But there are fears, and those fears, emanate from or stems from a couple of things. To me, in my opinion, it stems from, let's say, your priority. What's your priority for the organization, right? You say security is my first foremost priority, and I don't want to get anything outside. I want to have control over what I have, right? That's your thing. Second thing is, of course, they have the data protection and the data privacy risk because of the lack of transparency. Third thing, people don't want to adopt the cloud because they have limitations of the legacy environment, right? Now, let me give an example. Now, how to overcome these fears? To me, this fear of data protection and privacy, and not having the transparency or control over the data, it's all because people don't really understand how does the cloud security really works. There are two parts to the cloud, to the security in the cloud. One is security of the cloud, and the other one is security within the cloud. What service provider does is he is responsible for the security of the cloud, and the customer is responsible for security in the cloud. And if you look at, let's take an example of Azure or AWS. Can anyone? I mean, I can bet the number of, and I am pro cloud, by the way, because I have embraced cloud in a very structured way into my organization, and we are successful because if it not had been cloud, we would not have been managed to run our show non-disruptively during the pandemic. And this is the case with many and most of the organizations, how clouds help them survive the whole pandemic. Now, if you look at Azure and AWS, they have got all the certifications. Talk about data privacy and compliances, PCI, SOX, right? PCI DSS, HIPAA, EU GDPR, ISO 27001, and everything. You talk of everything. They have got DR, they have got encryption and everything. And they give the customer the control. They are the owner of the data, right? You can put in encryption, you can put in password, password privilege, password management, and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going into the technical thing, which is you have everything that you can do practically, right, in order to safeguard your environment. Now imagine if that were to be done in-house, you won't do even 50% of it, 50-60% of it, because it is so costly, it is so skill intensive, it is so labor intensive, not only to set up but also to run. So I think that's one of the reasons why people hesitate to get into the cloud. Now, what can be the best example if Food and Drug Administration of America, they are using the SaaS cloud, software as a service, to run their database, adverse event reporting, adverse event case processing database onto the cloud. So it's like, as people are continuing to understand, they're having right people with right skill in-house. They now understand, how to do it in a structured manner. Johnson & Johnson, look at all the companies, IB, Merck, they are all on the cloud, sitting on the cloud, because they have done it, they have understood it, and they are doing it in a structured way. But yes, there are limitations. We know that, pharma companies, big pharma companies, they have a lot of legacy applications that have that have been developed in-house. Yeah. And they are not cloud ready or virtualization ready. In that case, you can't move on to the cloud. But if security is something and you don't want to let anyone lay hands, and if you don't have any compelling business reason why I should go to cloud, I don't mind, I can spend 10 crores of rupees into the infrastructure. I don't mind. I don't have to go to the market in 1 month. I can wait for 3 months. Fine. I mean, you can do it in-house, but to my opinion, one should look at it in a very structured manner when it comes to cloud adoption.
Wow, I think you could totally be the brand ambassador for why organizations should absolutely adopt it. It sounds like, it's a matter of just plug and play. Despite, I think, despite whatever the industry hesitation is, it sounds like adopting the cloud would be just a plug and play sort of a thing. Thank you so very much, Mr. Atul, for educating us on that. We'd like to hear Mr. Pavithran's thought on this very same question, right? What do you think, and how is it that people could overcome the fears of adopting cloud? What are the advantages of it, and why they should absolutely do it right now after the session? So you seem to be on mute.
So, Nikita, the main reason why the pharma companies are not progressing on cloud aggressively like any other industries is the dilemma between innovation versus compliance. Like, most of the pharma or all the pharma and healthcare industries are highly regulated, right? So the kind of validations we have to do on our systems whenever there is a change happens is, very tedious. Generally, when we have any system on our premises, we control the changes in the system. So the validations will not be very, tedious. So in the cloud environment, since, we have all diversified customers, if you see the pharma customers are very, limited. So the power of controlling the cloud for the pharma is also limited. So as Atul mentioned, yes, AWS and some of the other CSPs are supporting all this GMS or GXP practices, but still pharma is hesitant to get into the quality aspects. Yes, we are going for the SaaS-based applications. We are going for disaster recovery applications to have right business continuity. All those aspects are taken care from the IT standpoint. But when it comes to R&D and the quality is always challenging, because pharma is a rich in intellectual property and also having a very sensitive R&D data. So still the business, because it is not always, the digital transformation is not always driven by IT. We are more or less enablers. We facilitate that, but it is more the business takes the decisions because of all the regulatory affairs involved in the pharma. Yes, many big companies are getting into that, and we are also seriously considering. Many are looking at cloud now, as Mr. Atul mentioned. It brings in a lot of trust, reliability, and scalability into this. If I wanted to, as you rightly said, if I wanted to start using after the meeting, yes, we can do it. That's the advantage of cloud. If I want to do it in my own in-house server, it takes time. I can do it in a day or whatever, any setup in the cloud. So yes, now the industry is changing definitely after COVID. We are looking at how we can leverage and how we can support our remote workers by adopting cloud more and more in the coming months. Yeah.
Great answer, Mr. Pavithran. And ladies and gentlemen, right, Mr. Pavithran has given you more titles like being enablers and facilitators, and that's exactly what a leader does, right? You've identified what is it that the IT sector in the pharma industry is expertise lies in. Fantastic answer, Mr. Pavithran. Thank you so very much. Our next question, we'd like for Mr. Ravi to share his perspective on the importance of developing effective security programs based on business model.
Yeah, see, if we look at it, I mean, pharma companies are adopting rapid digital transformation. After post-COVID, most of the organizations thought automation or digitization is the way forward for them. Earlier, most of the companies in India, especially, we used to think about we used to see manpower is most cost effective than the automation. So now, after COVID, most of the companies have realized that digitization is the way forward. Because of this, a lot of areas we need to focus at, especially the cyber security or the information security. So most of the organization started, going towards the proper security policies and having effective security programs in place to protect the key IT infrastructure or the information or data which they collaborate with external or internal stakeholders. There are three pillars of the information security. One is your confidentiality and integrity and availability. If you look at the entire pharma sector, like we have something called GXP, where the data integrity is one of the key factors. When you have generate a lot of data, that has to be protected against internal threats as well as external threats. So what happens in pharmaceutical? We have to really have a different strategies for different areas. We cannot have a common information security program for entire organization. Yes, we need to have a some of the points as a common information security programs, but it should be classified into different areas. Like we have something called R&D systems, we have IT systems, we have regulatory and compliance systems, and we have manufacturing systems. They're all four, these four pillars as part of IT. Like, you have something called ELNs, electronic lab notebooks for R&D. Also, you have scientific management applications for R&D. When it comes to manufacturing, you have DCS, we have SCADA, or, the PLC kind of this thing, or MES. And then when it becomes a quality and or compliance kind of a systems, we have CDS, we have LIMS, we have QMS, and there's multiple applications. So having one common, security program may not help the entire organization, because if it comes to manufacturing and the laboratory, why do we need internet access if it is all on premises? So you need to define different strategies for different layers of areas, and one common organization policy. Nothing but information security program is nothing but policies and procedures, how you implement policies and what is the procedures you are going to adapt it. And the organization should have complete, the framework of these kind of assets, and where we are going to adapt what policy and what procedures, and that should be in place. And apart from this, after the COVID, when during COVID, most of us enabled remote work access to most of our employees. So generally in IT companies, they train on the cyber securities and cyber or the security policies. When it comes to the pharmaceutical kind of operations, the operator are not aware about this kind of things. So, it's better to train them, or it should be all the policies and procedures should be available to the operator, to the management, and everybody should get trained. And especially the work from home kind of a thing, we should have different policies, like remote work policies, network policies, application infrastructure, with respect to these four areas. Like if you are going to give your manufacturing system access to the to the managers to remotely monitor it, and you should ensure that proper safety and security controls are in place. So these are the programs need to be effectively charted down, and also the organization should know what are the legacy systems available, how these legacy systems are interacting with the clouds or on premises kind of thing. And also most of the time, most of the organizations started moving towards SOC. They have some areas on internal SOCs, and some of the applications are on external SOCs. So there should be a policy or procedure which talks about what is internal SOC teams will do and what is the expectation from external SOCs. And apart from this, all the workforce should be educated about the ransomware attacks, CNC, phishing, social engineering, how the social engineering happens, and it is has to be awareness has to be created. The one thing which we see more sometimes, the employees register their email address, official email address in the social medias or the online portals. Okay, so that's another thing which should be educated to the employees to avoid those kind of registrations, to avoid social engineering attacks. And that is where it should be written in the policies and procedures, to when they onboard it. It should be part of the training, as well as continuous training has to be enabled it. And it should be different, according to me, it should be different for different areas. We can, instead of having a common security program, it doesn't make sense, because if you are your normal IT user, like your finance or accounts or admin, you should enable certain accesses. But whereas the user who is actually using manufacturing system, he doesn't need internet access there. Need basis, you should enable it to protect from the external threats. So this is how I feel. Effectiveness program should be implemented, and also it should be evaluated very periodically. So we have something called periodic reviews in GMP operations. So as well as in the cyber security or the security programs, also this periodic reviews has to be part of that.
Mr. Ravi, what a great point, right, you've raised about your employees using their official IDs in a lot of non-official purposes. You talked about social integration, people use it on their social website, which can cause for attacks to happen. But another reason I would like to add as to why you should not do that, which I've been a victim of, right? Is I used my previous organization just about every OTP generating, service possible. And when I left it, all of a sudden, I no longer had access to the services. So while security is definitely one part of it, think about when you leave the organization, what will happen. Thank you so very much for the detailed answer, Mr. Ravi. And I'd like to Mr. Pavithran. Mr. Pavithran, our question to you is, what is the impact of work from home? Like Mr. Ravi just mentioned about work from home and the threats that it brings to the security front. What measures have been taken to tackle this increased threat?
The work from home scenario, right? You're asking.
Yes.
Breaking, yeah. So I think Mr. Ravi has mentioned very good points in the best practices. So just to add to that, I think when we are enabling work from home, or now it is the new normal, we cannot avoid. So I think we need to have very robust policies, and work from home policy, BBYOD policy, so which will bring more awareness, and also some best practices in the organization, so users are aware. I think as earlier mentioned, the weakest link in the entire network is the users, right? So 60 to 70% of attacks are coming through the end users. So protecting the end user is very critical through different means. It could be through education, cybersecurity education, and also enabling some of the basic, multifunctional authorizations, like enabling, sending OTPs, as you said, to their mobiles, so that no one will be able to tamper with their accounts, email accounts. And also, right, most of the phishing attacks also happening, 70% of these attacks are happening outside of the inbox. That means on the mobile devices, because we use our mobile device, we went to check the office emails and other office related activities, and also, many personal things we do. I think that's where, many phishing attacks are happening. So we need to, educate and also have some strict password policy, and, have some periodic changes, and, audits. All those things would really help. And, there are, other aspects. What we need to do is more, to keep our systems up to date from the security and patching point of view, so that even if our users are, tricked by any attackers through social engineering, still we should have our system robust enough to contain the damage in the organization, and we should have resilient systems to bounce back. So the immunity for these threats would really help the organizations to have right ecosystem and the educated employees. That overall would really help us to deal with this new normal.
Mr. Pavithran, what an interesting point, right? I think from an organization's perspective, the end users are the biggest in this space. But from an IT perspective, ironic, the end users are the weakest. So what an interesting point. I would request Mr. Parab to just shed light on the same point, extrapolate and shed light on the same point.
This was on a work from home, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. I think it was indeed a pleasure listening to each one of you. First of all, the work from home is not a security boundary. It is just one of the extension to secure it in a different way, because what matters is we always believe that the Wockhardt is whether you have a true integration, triangulation of people, process, and technology. You may have a best of the technology, but it becomes a hindrance to the work, or it is not fully secure. Now, these are some of the areas which we need to watch it very closely. We have seen the incidences, your well-connected work from home, but people start complaining about efficiency and productivity get impacted. So how do you train the people? Because when we went ahead with the work from home, earlier, before that also, people were accessing, being a global organization, people were working from home at different time zones. So how was it training and awareness of the whole access part, whole need to know, need to do basis part, and what a security means when you are accessing as a bring your own device approach. So we had a very extensive training, push up of some infographics to the people, what security means to them, how important the security is even in their personal life, and so on. So we had a almost, even when we were working from home, at least for, I remember, 3 to 4 months, we were also pushing a lot of infographics on the cyber security. They were small nugget kind of thing on a fortnightly or a weekly basis. So they used to get buying all those things. Now, this is one aspect of, because if most of the, I would say, threat actors could penetrate, it is just because of the negligence from the employees. Of course, there remains the titan of it. So this is one area of the work from home. Second area is how do you communicate why you need to also have, let's say, when we say multi-factor authentication or VPN route and other areas, you can only access this area. Or, for example, as a pharmaceutical, we have R&D areas, we have plant locations area, manufacturing, we have corporate people, we have field force. So in a pharma, you will have these kind of different set of the people who have a different expectation, different way to handle through the technology. You need to give a flexibility, you need to give some kind of freedom. In some cases, R&D people, you don't open the IP related domain to the external world. There you don't even allow people to work from home, they need to come to office. So work from home also has a different approach based on your severity and, as I said, confidentiality, availability, and integrity. Based on that, we allowed people, we didn't allow the people. So that's one. Second area, while you're working from home, it is very important. We may be, as an IT department, we may keep reporting to board or to management saying that we are secure, safe, and nothing is going to go. But we have seen the incidences, whether it is Dr. Reddy's, Lupin, and many other pharmas where things have happened. We voluntarily, in the third month of work from home, we appointed a third party and told them proactively, please assess our cyber security from the point of view of work from home, whether we are good, whether we need to improve, whether there are lacuna, there are things. So this is something which we did it, and there were few observations. We are not saying we are clean, but they could be very easily fixed. And we have transparently showed that report to the board of directors. That's one area we said, okay, we don't say that we are safe, but we get it certified from the best of the talent, best of the professionals in the domain, to say that we are much safer. This is one area. Now, while we are working from home, the focus, and this is because of pharma industry has two different pillars. One is a operation excellence pillar, and the second one is a growth side of the pillar. Growth side, you'll always find people, including Wockhardt or any other company, lot of cloud adoption has happened. Because there you get a edge, because when the new idea comes, you need to implement it quickly and then go ahead and so on and so forth. But when it comes to operational excellence side, or the GXP domain, we say, whether it is good lab practices, good manufacturing practice, or good clinical practices, these are by far, it is a core part of the business, and it has remained within the internal data center and not on the cloud. Now, while this happens, and this is where all the attacks which has played, it is how do you differentiate your OT network and IT network in a proper way? Because OT network has a more sensitivity towards patient safety, data integrity, product quality. Even because during the pandemic time, when we are working from home, most of the partners, vendors, service provider, they were also logging into our machines, because most of the machines are today software driven, or at least if not, they are embedded software driven kind of thing. So how do you ensure that nothing comes when a remotely service provider logs into it? For us, he's also working from home. So in that case, if tomorrow the malware is somewhere sitting in his or her laptop, it can also flow through my end, and some settings can go wrong and right. So these were some. Do we give so much secured part to our OT environment, or we are neglecting? And then most of the attacks, if you see, they have happened because their OT environment is much weaker than the IT environment. We have seen, if we in our environment, you will always find our thought for our complete security design is, how do I make the life of a threat actor difficult? So that's the first question we ask to that. The moment we ask this, the whole design changes, and it is a design thinking approach. The moment there's some disturbance. So to remain a little bit short, so when work from home, it doesn't limit only to just an access point, but you need to see who are your stakeholders. Do you have a stakeholder list in your thing, whether it is internal, external, whether he is a partner with a service provider? So we had a policy of bring your own device in place. We had a rigorous training which we are given to our own people. Even we have considered the ecosystem. When I say ecosystem, our carrying and forwarding agent CFA, we have also talked about stockists. We have taken a lot of Zoom or the MS Teams sessions for them. How do you? So we started educating them also. So then when they are also working with us, they have some of them, they have access of our system. So they do not just play around with that. So these were some of the key areas which we have taken, and we had always ensured that our IT and OT lookout is equally correct. And the last point which we need to be mindful about is, we should have a cyber insurance in place. The very simple example is, even if you want to go for cyber insurance, your whole of the security posture get tested by third party, and that is where you come to know, when they charge you higher premium, you come to know you are not that good. They may not say that that you are not good, but that's a clear indication that you are not so good on your cyber security posture. How you are, whether you have a layered approach of security, or whether you are having the missing layers, which are very, very important. And most of the cyber attacks, if you see, where they have failed is they have failed in a weaker detection, and they're never failed because of their response or resolution. Some of them, they were unable to even detect for 6 months, 4 months, 3 months, whatever the period is. Everyone speaks about that. But can you make your detection very stronger? And that is what one of the area which is working from home. We had a special attention only on detection. If we can detect, we could. I'll give an example also of when we were having during the same time, we were also having manufacturing the vaccines at UK. We could see so many attacks which are coming. They couldn't penetrate. We have on all our endpoints, we have AI enabled. We never relied on just a signature based antivirus. We had a AI based agent running on every our endpoints, whether it is manufacturing, whether it is quality, so that that particular if the attack happens, one, it does not laterally move because of our internal VLANs, which we have a firewall, also a very intelligent firewall, and also. So just to summarize, work from home, they're just not employee. You need to take the whole of the ecosystem into consideration. Or we created a stakeholder register, and who are those people who are very, very critical. So this is the design thinking. It has to go in their mind. I'm sure all of us has done. I thought I'll just share in a brief what we have done it, and probably we are so far okay.
Fantastic answer, Mr. Parab. I mean, we absolutely appreciate your time and effort in speaking in such clarity, crystal clarity with every step involved. All of us have heard of BYOD. I don't think I need to tell you what the acronym stands for, but BYOD, bring your own device. That is something new which we've coined, which we've heard today. Fantastic answer, Mr. Ravi. And Mr. Parab, of course, right? We see that Mr. Parab is here. We've got Mr. Atul and Mr. Pavithran. So, gentlemen, this is our last question for this session. I was just counting in our amazing, our amazing speakers who've come in. So, for the closing note, right, in one line, I will take the names progressively. Please answer. What do you think is your forecast, the visible trend that of technology? So we'll start with Mr. Ravi.
See, definitely, the pharma companies are adopting the next generation cybersecurity solutions. I mean, earlier they used to think about firewall and endpoint protection is going to protect the organization. No. So that now they've started adopting EDR and XDR and MDR, and as well as AI and ML based cyber security solutions. So, and also they're classifying the areas. That's a very interesting sign. And as Parab told, they segregated already IT and OT layer. So that's how we also did it. And 5 years back, our IT and OT layers are separated, and we started adopting the AI and ML into our cybersecurity. And also the security posture, earlier I used to have islands of security solutions. Now they're consolidating and they're building a cybersecurity framework. This is the new concept which people are doing it, starting from the entry point to endpoints. All are talking to each other and integrated and AI enabled.
Fantastic answer, Mr. Ravi. Thank you so very much. I'll move on to Mr. Atul. Mr. Atul, in one line, if you could let us know the visible trend that you see will definitely have an increased adoption in innovation and technology.
I would go for AI and ML.
Oh, you literally stuck to one line. It's shorter than one line.
Okay, so my fellow participants, they spoke about innovation, innovation, the need for innovation, embracing digitalization into their operations, into their technology, right? That's the need of the hour, and healthcare industry across the globe, right? They have cost pressures. Now I can talk about, in my area, what kind of cost pressures, you look at the process such as case processing, you look at the process such as regulatory submission, right? You look at the process of, electronic, what do you call, electronic records, right? Or transcription, right? All that kind of stuff. You look at medical devices, right? The way they record and capture the data and transfer it to a data warehouse. So it's happening, and while all things are happening, companies have a lot of pressure on the R&D cost. They have the pressure to reduce the cost and improve the time to market. Now, how does it going to happen? Right? And this actual requirement has pushed the technology companies to look for viable alternatives, and that viable alternative is coming forth in the form of artificial intelligence, machine learning, right? What we call reading from emails, reading from Word documents, reading from structured files, converting your speech into text, converting your text into speech, right? Automating the dossier review process and all that kind of stuff. So it's happening, right? Because people don't want, they want to take the cost out of all this process. So technology companies are helping, pharma companies in lowering the cost of operation, and AI ML along with automation, right? Remember, automation is always going to be there. Robotic process automation, whatever works like a factory will be automated, and AI is going to be everywhere, right? It's just not pharma companies. It's going to be pervasive.
Whatever works like a factory will be automated. And fantastic answer, Mr. Atul. Moving on to Mr. Pavithran. Pavithran, in one line, what is your take on the visible trend that you see will for sure have increased adoption?
I think just adding to what Ravi and Atul said, AI is definitely going to play an important role. The other aspect, what I see, is the cyber resilience. So no one is immune to cyber threats. So we need to be, very clear with our resilient approach, how quickly we can bounce back if we are impacted. I think that is going to be one of the focus areas. Thank you.
Fantastic answer, Mr. Pavithran.
Yeah, I think, thank you. The trend which we see, which in the cyber security, is intelligence and insights. That's going to be there, and this intelligence in everything what we do, because it comes from the rational. We do, every company cannot afford to have a big competency, not too much of money, and there's always a skill set gap. So how do we breach these three things? You can always have a digital agents like artificial intelligence coming into the picture. So, and you just don't live there, but you need to have insights which will lead to review by exception and not 100% review. So with this, I think every product or every service which you're going to get it would seen from that angle whether it is going to provide that or not. If it is going to be just an repetitive and very, very mundane kind of product, then it is not going to stay for long. So that's my view.
Fantastic answer, Mr. Parab. And gentlemen, I would want you to clap for yourselves along with me. That's how we do it at Exito. Big round of applause for that Absolutely insightful session. Thank you so very much for your valuable time and insights. All right, our superstars, and of course, this includes our amazing panelists as well. With this, we come to the end of the 11th edition of PITS powered by Exito Media.